Hey y'all, it's your legal bestie attorney Symone, and today we are talking Wendy Williams. The judge in her guardianship case has made a new ruling. So hit that like, hit that subscribe as you come on in, and make sure you let us know where you're viewing from. Now, a lot has been going on as well with the Diddy case. Check out my video from yesterday where I break down Diddy's $100 million lawsuit against attorney Ariel Mitchell Kidd, Newsmax, and Ariel's client, Courtney Burgess, who I call TD Fakes because he appears to be lying. And then tomorrow, I'm going to have a new video out as well. I'm really trying to delve into the Uncle Nearest situation. That is the Black-owned whiskey, as well as, and he actually was the bourbon creator who taught Jack Daniels how to do it, okay? And it is one of his descendants, Fawn Weaver, a Black woman, who is leading that company, and they had a recent ruling in that case, as well as I just learned Sarah from Making the Band. A judge has dismissed, I think, like 32 of the counts in her case. I have not even looked at it, but I want to cover that one this weekend. So there's more tea. So let us know. Oh, I see Christy Moss is watching from St. Louis. Yes, we got to get into this. All right. So first off, to start, don't forget, guys, you can always go to my website, which is SymoneRedwine.com. You can go to the far right here if you'd like to book a consult and click book, hire attorney Symone. You can scroll on down and the calendar is here. Consults for 30 minutes start at $200. But also, if you just go on back up to the top, you can get my ebook, Background Checks 101. Now, when you purchase via PayPal, you should automatically check your spam and so forth. There's an auto link that says, thank you for purchasing. And then there is a link to the download there. If you have any issues with that, you can always just send me an email and I will manually attach the book there. Thank you guys so much for joining. All right. So with the Wendy Williams case, now we all know poor Wendy has been dealing with this guardianship for about, gosh, it's been since 2022. And it's important to make sure everyone understands how this started in the first doggone place, which is this. It was her son, unfortunately. So what we did know is that someone close to her was that basically Wendy had used Wells Fargo and the same Wells Fargo money manager for over a decade. So that woman was accustomed to seeing certain movement in and out of Wendy's accounts. Well, she started to see what she considered to be suspicious financial activity and believed that Wendy might be getting taken advantage of. So specifically, some of those purchases that were in question included purchases such as her son purchased, it was over $100,000 worth of Uber Eats in 1 month. It was later learned those were purchases her son had made via his Uber Eats account. And it was the son specifically. At one point, I thought it might have been the ex-husband. No, it was actually financial purchases that the son was making on her accounts. And at this point, he was a college student that raised the red flag. Well, once that happened, Wells Fargo said, hold on, because with Wells Fargo, under US law, if a banking institution believes that one of their clients is being taken advantage of, they have a responsibility to stop the bleeding. Otherwise, they are legally responsible to pay Wendy and Wendy's family any and all monies that were improperly taken from her account once they became aware that that was an issue. And here, what happened as well is what I really want you guys to pay attention to is when it was determined that it was the son and the son's finances that were an issue, Wells Fargo then filed a document with the court saying, hey, we think she may need a guardian to monitor her finances because it appears she's being taken advantage of. Well, they froze the accounts. And so what Wendy's team did is they said, oh, well, if you feel, because they felt that Wendy was not mentally capable of handling her own finances, they said, okay, we'll bring a power of attorney. Hey, guys, just to let you know, this whole thing could have been prevented with a power of attorney. Most major banks in America, they actually have their own power of attorney form. Chase has it, Wells Fargo, Bank of America. You can literally ask your banker while you're good before you're having any mental health issues and say, hey, could you give me a copy of whatever you guys use as a power of attorney? And I'm going to get it notarized. They even can notarize it for you right there in the bank. The problem was Wendy submitted one, but it listed her son as the person to be given power of attorney. And there's a major, major issue with that because number one, the son is who they believe she needed protection against. And number two, the problem was she did not execute the power of attorney until the time when they decided that they felt she was not mentally okay. You have to do the power of attorney when you're okay, when everything's fine, no one has any concerns about your mental capacity. Because if you're doing it when it's believed that you're not okay, they cannot accept that power of attorney from you because it's believed that that power of attorney was created with the same undue influence that is allowing that same person to go in your account and spend $100,000 a month on Uber Eats. I hope that makes sense. And interestingly, when her son was asked about those purchases, like via the court or otherwise, he said, well, I made those because my mom wanted me to. She wanted me to make those purchases. Well, that doesn't help the case either, because what that shows is that you're unable to take the lead and literally have power over the person who's believed to be incapacitated. In other words, if they're not going to listen to you, then you are not sufficiently equipped to be their guardian or power of attorney. All right. So someone asked a good way. Waffles and Biscuits said, I spent $100K on Uber Eats last month. Do something. Banks should not pocket watch the rich. That's probably normal in their tax bracket. So it's not. And that's what created the alarm. Remember, she had the same bank and the same banker for over a decade. So that woman was able to see what was unusual. Not only that, I think the truth is, if your grandmother or grandfather, whoever, if your grandmother, let's say one of your cousins is living with your grandma, and all of a sudden, yes, your grandmother's wealthy, but all of a sudden in 1 month, that particular cousin's Uber Eats had $100,000 bill, you would hope that somebody in the bank would say, hey, flag this. It doesn't look right. Because in the end, if they had not, then the bank would have been on the hook, as I mentioned, to Wendy's family. Also, importantly, someone has asked, can you explain the difference between client and just a regular customer? So client, I use client in this context because when I think of customer, I think of just the regular banking. You go in, you got your debit card, you need to pull out some money. Here, Wendy was considered a client. She was both a client and customer, but I say client because they have a department that's called private clients. That's where they also will and invest your money for you, make sure it's in index funds, and they have a more holistic. So it's not just you having a bank account, they actually manage investments for you. That's what I said. Uber Eats 100K, how? I don't know. Yeah, guardianships, especially in New York. New York is notorious for having guardianships that take advantage of the incapacitated. That would be the name of the person in Wendy's situation. And there have been situations where literally it's like a family member will say, oh, this person needs a guardian. And what they're wanting is to take over that person's brownstone. Especially there was a lot of older African-American women who own their brownstones in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and different areas, and different family members and or the guardians would force a sale for the property, and all types of unfair things were taking place. So all guardianships are not created equal. So I just needed you to know how they got there. Now, then I also want you, here we go. Let me share this one. Now, back in March, Wendy was super excited because she had contacted the police and there was an ambulance that took her from her memory care unit. Now, I want to be clear, with a memory care unit, it's not the same as a traditional nursing home. So this is I want to say it's about $50,000 a month. It's very high end. They have a chef. They have all these types of things. But when she talks about she can't just access her cell phone and she's locked in her room, that is true. A memory care unit is for people with dementia. Now, Wendy is saying, I don't have any dementia. But what it was determined, even on the Lifetime movie, the Lifetime documentary about her, previously doctors were saying that she had alcohol induced dementia, as well as a type of frontal temporal dementia. That temporal dementia, it hits younger people. I'm saying there are some 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, but it hits you younger and it hits you differently. Um, it hits you younger and it hits differently. So in March, though, Wendy had called an ambulance or the police. They came, they got her out of her unit, and she was super excited. I want to read this article back from March. It says Wendy may be a big step closer to freedom because a psychiatrist examined her Monday and the results are clear. Wendy's mental capacity is fully intact. Sources with direct knowledge tell TMZ, pay attention to this. Said sources with direct knowledge tell TMZ Wendy scored a 10 out of 10 on a psych exam called a capacity test. She was asked 10 questions to determine if she was alert and oriented, and she answered every one correctly. TMZ broke the story. Wendy went to Lenox Hill Hospital in New York City Monday, where a psychiatrist spent time with her. The results of the test are radically different from the assessment of The Guardian, who has filed legal documents saying her condition is getting worse and not better. Wendy was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia, a diagnosis that Wendy disputes. She was not examined Monday. Oh, wait. Sorry. Yeah, it says she was not examined Monday. She was not examined Monday to determine if she was misdiagnosed. That is a clear distinction. We're told the results of the capacity test will be forwarded to the judge in the guardianship case. Y'all remember this poor picture, Popo Wendy. We also broke the story. Officers from NYPD paid Wendy a visit Monday to determine if she's being held in a prison-like environment. It was not. I pulled this up on a prior live. It's a posh, it's like $50,000 a month, like 30 to 50,000 per month. Memory care unit within a facility that has older people. It has people that are in rehabilitation for physical, not drugs and stuff, but for physical ailments. It's got a private chef. It's got all kinds of things. In addition, it says Adult Protective Services has launched an investigation. Now, when I covered this back in March, y'all, some people didn't like hearing it, but I told y'all, I said, this is not the same as a dementia exam. I pulled up this capacity test. As we stated it in the article, they ask you 10 questions. Well, what type of questions? They ask you questions like what city and state were you born in? Who is the current president? They ask you what state are you currently in? Things like that, okay? So I knew when I read this article back then in March, I said, we still have an uphill battle. There's not the sufficient proof yet to get her out of it. And we're going to talk about two elements. We're going to talk about the guardianship, and then we're going to talk about the guardian. So I see people putting stuff in the comments. Don't worry. We're going to talk about the guardian too. But I knew that this test likely was not going to be sufficient to get her out, because also if you in the article, there was key words in there like TMZ said, get this stuff off the screen. Sources with direct knowledge tell TMZ. That means TMZ has not read the documents. That's why I knew this was not going to be sufficient to get her out of a guardianship. If the document said she doesn't need to be a guardianship, it would have said, they would have released that. It would have been on Facebook. It would have been on TMZ. They would have screamed it from the mountaintops. They would have gave a copy to Lauren LaRosa and Charlamagne himself. He would have waved it in the air, waved it around in the air like Petey Pablo used to do with his t-shirts back in the day. For those of you who know Petey Pablo, you know what I'm talking about. Okay? It says, I hope she shooes the ish out of Wells Fargo. Well, no, I think Wells Fargo, she has no case against Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo 100% did exactly what they were supposed to do. And you'd want someone to do the same thing if it was your grandma and one of your cousins or nephews was spending $100,000 a month on Uber Eats out of her account. So I think it's displaced because there are certain red flags that appear in someone's financial account when their financial behavior has changed. You guys may have been on vacation or something like that, right? And all of a sudden your account gets frozen. You can't do anything on it. And they say, hey, we need you to call and approve these transactions. The same thing happens in those accounts, and it's supposed to. It's a protective measure. It does way more good than harm generally. Now, the separate issue, though, I believe that's the bigger problem here is this guardian doing a good job? Is she the appropriate person? Because the first question people ask is, hold on. Now, okay, if you're saying there has to be a guardian, why does it have to be a stranger? Why can't it be one of her family? So the answer is because Wendy didn't want her family to do it. Do not forget that. Remember, this is the site where you get the facts and the tea. You don't just hear what you want to hear. Remember, her sister is an attorney. Her sister wanted to do it. I believe it was her sister, Wanda. Wanda is a lawyer. Wanda wanted to do it. Wendy specifically said she did not, and she said this in her documentary, she did not want Wanda to be her guardian because Wanda was not going to let her drink. I kid you not, because Wanda wasn't going to let her drink. Y'all have some really good questions in the chat. I'm going to continue to get back to them. And remember, the form of dementia, she has like two forms, whatever, but the form that was referenced in the documentary was dementia that was alcohol induced. So she set herself back. She, as in Wendy, set herself and the family back by saying, I don't want my family, because first off, the judge always goes to family. You got family, you have family who's an attorney. Not only is her sister Wanda a lawyer, she is a lawyer for children in the foster care system. That is directly on par with being an advocate for someone who needs a guardian. She's literally a guardian for children. So, but for Wendy saying, no, Your Honor, I don't want her to be my guardian, she could have been the guardian. Now, I do, but also that is a symptom of her mental disorder she was dealing with at the time of the documentary. That is an example of how it takes you away from being able to be logical and reasonable, etc. Okay? Somebody said, I wish we could like comments in the chat. I do too. Okay, good question. So Christy Moss is saying one of her issues with Wells Fargo is that Wells Fargo didn't contact her, as in Wendy, that they just moved forward with freezing her account. Well, I'm not sure that that's true, because they did contact her. In fact, that's how she knew she needed to come in with a power of attorney, was because they contacted her. And the contact that they had with her is what made them feel her mental health was declining. Also, once it's determined that this person may not be okay, that's when you as in a bank worker, can no longer make decisions, even for your own banker, your own client. You either have to go by who their power of attorney is, or you have to tell the court, you decide. Court, you decide. It's no different, guys, than if there was a child. If there was a child at a school and someone believed that child was being taken advantage of, if you want to be mad at Wells Fargo, you got to be mad at the school teacher that calls CPS and says, I think we got a problem. Calling CPS is the same as here, how they contacted the judge. Said, Judge, it's up to you. Make your decision. When that teacher picks up the phone and calls CPS, that's that teacher saying, CPS, it's up to you. Do your investigation. Make your decision. Okay. All right. So who was her power of attorney? If you're joining us now, the power of attorney was her son. At the time, he was only 19 or 20. He was in college. He hadn't even finished college. And this was a this was like a $10 million account. I don't know of any 19-year-olds with the maturity or the financial prowess to manage a $10 million account when they're already spending $100,000 a month on Uber Eats. And don't forget, there was also an issue where they had to undo or get him out of his lease. He had $100,000, I think it was $100,000 a month lease for an apartment of some sort in Miami. It was either $50,000 a month, or it was a lot. And this was for her son that was in college. So And Wendy herself spoke out and said the reason she's in this situation is because of her son, that she forgives him, that she loves him, but that her son was the one who was making poor financial decisions with her money. So I just gave you the TMZ. Now I'm going to read for you the update on the judge's recent decision. All right, let's switch it to this. I'm going to make it larger because I know y'all like to read with me. Okay. So it says Wendy Williams' medical exam is complete as an updated health diagnosis upholds her guardianship. This means, y'all, she's going to have to stay in this guardianship. So Wendy's guardianship is being upheld after she completed a significant number of tests as part of a medical examination, according to documents obtained by people. Now, again, this one is documents obtained by people. Remember when I read the TMZ article? It was TMZ said they found these things out based on sources close to Wendy. So this means this was all in writing and they've seen and confirmed it. Sources tell people that the medical exam determined Williams has frontal temporal dementia and aphasia, a diagnosis that she received in 2023. The former talk show host has been living under a legal guardianship that oversees both her finances and her health since May of 2022. It says, legal documents obtained by people indicate the TV personality's medical evaluation. Oh, no, I just read that. Hold on. 23. It says, in the documents, an attorney for Williams' guardian, Sabrina Massey, requests an extension of the current stay until November 3rd to allow time for the judge who is presiding over a separate guardianship case to determine whether Morrissey will remain in her role and whether Williams still requires a guardian. Here's what that means. And this is where I'm particularly irritated. It means the judge is going to decide, since it's been determined, at least initially, that Wendy has this form of dementia, they're going to decide if they're going to keep Sabrina as the guardian and whether Wendy needs a guardian at all. First of all, I think the answer should be no. What I want to know is, what I feel like, Sabrina, something is wrong with you, girl. If you're at home, I think you got something better to do. Something is wrong with you that you don't want to just step down and not be the guardian. Go away, Sabrina. Go away. Even though I do believe Wendy needs something, as of right now, from the facts that are given, she needs something in place. I feel that it appears now that with the distrust with the family, that Wendy's distrust in her is broken down. And for a guardianship to work, there needs to be a team. The team should be the guardian, the family, those closest to that person that has living loved ones. And if you can't get along with the family, why won't you just recuse yourself? Judges do it all the time on lesser facts. Sabrina, why do you care unless it's pertaining to money? Go away, Sabrina. In fact, if I was Sabrina, what I would do is I would call my homegirls who are guardians and say, look, these people are shaking me every which way but loose. Okay, I'm about sick of these Wendy Williams people and her family. I don't want nothing to do with it. Hey, any of y'all want to be the guardian? Okay, because I want to recommend someone else to the judge. I would give the judge 3 other people that wouldn't mind. Or hell, if none of my friends say, I don't want to do it either, other people's is crazy, then I would just recommend names of others. So what we have in law, as well as like mediators. So when I have a case and I'm mediating a case, I'll propose 3 mediators. The other side will propose 3 mediators, and we'll come and say, okay, which one do we want? Go away, Sabrina. Y'all let me know. Why would you still want to do this, Sabrina? Get you something to do. Sabrina, get you something else to do. Her niece potentially could be her guardian. I still think her sister would make an excellent, excellent guardian. At one point in a prior video, I saw that her sister had like some type of lien or something that was going on, but that could easily be resolved. And at this point, the guardian is not just financial. Her guardian is also a guardian over excuse me, over her health, safety, wellness. In fact, it was alleged that at one point the Guardian actually got her into rehab, which is very helpful. Um, but yeah, Sabrina, unless it's about, the only reason I see Sabrina wanting to stick it out is the money. Get you something to do, Sabrina. Now, Sabrina also was sued along with other guardians and other attorneys in a $300 million lawsuit. The point of, the basis of that lawsuit, and that lawsuit was some years ago. It's pending, but Sabrina is not being held responsible for anything in that case. The gist of it was that there was a personal injury, multi-million dollar settlement for a gentleman who was injured. And his family alleges that the attorneys for him lied and said the only way he could receive the multi-million dollar settlement is if he signed and agreed to have a guardianship created. So his family signed and agreed and did so. Initially, he had a different guardian, and then later it was changed to Sabrina. So the initial guardian was there for some years, and it was alleged that that guardian wasted his money, was unnecessary, blah, blah, blah. And ultimately, after years, I want to say it was about 8 years, 7 or 8 years, that family was able to end the guardianship. But it took millions, or at least $1 million. It took a whole bunch of money for them to get out of it. So Sabrina was attached to that case. She wasn't the initial guardian, but she was a guardian that later then stepped in. So going back to the article, it also states the attorney, this is the attorney for Sabrina Massey. The other thing is, who's paying for the attorney for Sabrina Massey? Wendy. Wendy's money. Why does Sabrina need an attorney? Sabrina, you are the attorney. You're the lawyer. File your own documents. Sabrina, if you can't defend yourself, how are you defending Wendy? I'm just saying. I don't understand. I don't understand this. Now, I understand there is this separate lawsuit that Sabrina Massey has filed on behalf of Wendy against Lifetime, and I'll get into that. And in that one, Sabrina Massey did hire a law firm that specializes in media law and those types of lawsuits. I understand that. But here, where it says, in this guardianship, an attorney for Williams' guardian requests an extension. The guardian is an attorney. The attorney shouldn't need an attorney in the guardianship to extend the guardianship. It doesn't make sense. It's just stupid. And it seems like a huge waste of money. And going back to it, says the attorney also notes that, quote, complications have arisen due to various parties, including counsel for certain members of Williams's family. Williams's ex-husband and others have indicated their intention to challenge both the guardianship itself as well as Miss Morrissey's status as guardian, as they should. Go away, Sabrina. As they should. Now, let me say this about the ex-husband. So the ex-husband has filed a lawsuit. I think it's like $100 million lawsuit or something. He's filed a lawsuit regarding the guardianship. And what he's claiming was that, he doesn't want it to end. He just wants a different guardian to be appointed. I want his case to be dismissed for what's called a lack of standing. Standing means quit minding other people's business. It means you cannot come to court and file a lawsuit over something that ain't got nothing to do with you. Standing means it has to have something to do with you as the person being harmed. So in this case, for example, her niece who wants to be her guardian could potentially file, or her son could file on behalf of his mother. The ex-husband, you were ex-husband for a reason. Bye-bye. You couldn't keep your Peter Weeder in your pants, and you decided to go out and have a baby with your little community girlfriend, okay? So y'all go lay up in whatever Red Roof Inn you can afford or what have you. My concern with the husband, ex-husband, filing and wanting to be involved in the guardianship is this. He's not getting his little spousal support no more. And that's what he used to keep that girl's legs in the air. Keep them legs in the air, okay, with the mistress. And there was a provision. The reason he stopped getting the support is because the provision in the divorce stated that if it was determined that Wendy was basically incapacitated and could no longer work, he no longer would receive the spousal support. So he wants Wendy to get up and get back out there working so he can get his money. You're not fooling anybody, Mr. Hunter, or whatever your name is. Kevin Hunter. Kevin, get away from us. Get away from me with that, Apollo. Get away from me. All right, so finishing up this article. It says, this update comes 5 months after the former talk show host was removed from her assisted living facility and taken to the hospital by New York Police Department March 10th. The following day, Williams called into Good Day, New York, where she claimed she received mental competency tests following her dementia diagnosis and claimed she was, quote, claimed she was cognitively impaired. She said, I passed with flying colors. She alleged asking her caretaker, who accompanied her to the hospital, to, quote, elaborate on everything. They stated she has those tests. She's being deemed she's not incapacitated. So those tests were about your mental capacity at the moment. It doesn't have anything to do with the form of dementia. But here's the thing. 2 things can be true. You can have the frontal temporal dementia, but still be able to make some decisions for yourself. It's not an immediate thing. So part of the question becomes, all right, she has this form of dementia. Where is she in the spectrum? So what's going on now in the current case is that the parties want it to be postponed until November 3rd. And then they want to have a hearing on whether to keep Sabrina Morrissey, on whether or not the guardianship is still needed despite this diagnosis, right? Because, as I stated, dementia is a spectrum. She may need a caregiver. She may need something else. Now, previously, she did have an in-home caregiver, but she was giving them the blues to where they would quit. They would leave. She would fire them. So that was not a feasible solution then. But then it says further in the article, it says in February of 24, Williams' medical care team revealed the 60-year-old had been diagnosed with progressive aphasia and frontal temporal dementia. Then in November, amid her ongoing legal battle with A&E TV networks over Lifetime's, quote, Where is Wendy Williams series, Morrissey claimed, that's the Guardian, that Williams was cognitively impaired, permanently disabled, and legally incapacitated. Now, this is what she claimed in order to have the capacity to bring that lawsuit as her guardian. Now, as a guardian, a legal guardian appointed by the courts, you can always bring a lawsuit on behalf of your incapacitated person. But she's at a serious stalemate with Wendy because what happened was this. Wendy wants to get back on TV, and we all know that. And when Sabrina filed this lawsuit against A&E over the documentary, Wendy's fear, logically and reasonably, is it's like the Nene problem. You can't sue a network and then want to be on a network too. You can't be in the middle of suing somebody and be like, hey, give me a show. So effectively, Wendy kept saying, I don't want you to sue them. They were good to me. Stop it. Leave them alone. So what happened was Morrissey then had to do this renewed testing to confirm whether or not she needed to follow Wendy's instructions and drop the A&E lawsuit, or whether Wendy was too incapacitated where she didn't have to listen to Wendy. I hope that helps make that part a little bit more sense. Yeah. On the Breakfast Club, she said the same thing. Said the same thing. So Wendy really, really wants to get back on TV, but now they sued. Now I have to say, I have read the A&E lawsuit and the grounds make sense. A component of it is, number one, the lawsuit claims that A&E knew good and well that Wendy was going through these mental capacity issues and had a guardian, and therefore her signature on the contract is null and void, because you cannot, a signature from someone who you know lacks capacity is an invalid agreement. Basically, think of someone who's Think of someone who's completely got dementia, schizo, whatever, and is having an episode. You can hand them a contract that says, hey, you're going to give me $1 million, and they sign it, but you can't hold them to it because you knew good and well they were not okay when they signed it. So that was the number one grounds, the first grounds that she used to sue A&E. And then secondly, she said the terms of your contract were not reasonable. You didn't pay her enough. You humiliated her. You did not protect her, and you made fun of her. And initially, they as in Morrissey, tried to get get an injunction to prevent the documentary from airing at all. So in the end, where we're at is this. There should be an update around November the 3rd, unless they decide to push back that date, where the court then is going to determine whether they're going to keep Morrissey as the guardian or someone else, or whether she still needs a guardianship. I'm pretty sure they're going to say, yes, she needs a guardianship. So it seems that the best bet for the family would be to propose to the judge alternative guardians. Now, some have mentioned the niece. I would go with the lawyer sister before the niece, just because that sister is the sister is an attorney. She is her qualifications are actually much more similar to the guardians, right? Because not only is the sister Wanda a lawyer, but she was a lawyer that worked on behalf of children in the foster care system as their advocates. As their advocates. That's what Wendy needs right now, is her advocate. So, all right, let me know your questions down below in the chat. Also, let me know what topics you want me to cover next. I'm going to just skim through here and see if there's any questions I didn't ask. I'm excited. I'm going to bed, y'all, tomorrow. I'm going to the Hamptons. Y'all, I'm going on a first date to the Hamptons. Trying to get my groove back. It says, what about a person, okay, who is special needs? Is that signature null and void? It depends on what their special needs are, but often, yes. Here's the rule of thumb. If the person with the special needs themselves has a guardian, then absolutely it would be null and void. Especially if the person trying to get the signature knows that they have a guardian. Right. It doesn't mean she would. Well, that's the issue. You know what? I'm so glad that you said this. Ra the creator says, well, it doesn't mean she won't rob Wendy. I think you're referring to the sister. You're right. And I want to make this distinction. Court appointed guardians are licensed, bonded, and insured. I don't know about license. Well, they have a law license, so they're licensed, but they're bonded and they're insured. What that means is that if they do steal, there's an insurance policy that the family can tap into. They can sue, they can make a claim against that policy to get back whatever money was improperly taken. So that is a difference between using, and usually, if you're going to have someone appointed, the courts will actually require it for the aunt or for the sister to be appointed, that the sister get bonded by an insurance company, so that if that happens, again, there will be protections. What about so she can do what she wants? All right, guys. All right. I'll see you guys later. I'll be back tomorrow. Y'all take care. Bye, y'all.